say that immersion is the best approach if you want to teach fluency, and I agree. But if all you do is just speak the language and nothing but the language, and you have no training or you haven't thought out your approach at all, you're liable to kind of leave your students in the dust. They may just be overwhelmed, and you may not succeed in teaching that fluency that you wanted to. So in order to keep your students with you, there are 3 kinds of support that a teacher should give in order to make it possible for the immersion process to work. And those are simplification, repetition, and experience. I hope tonight's demonstration will show all of these. Let's say a little bit about each one of these before we begin the demonstration. First of all, simplification. The easiest and most effective way, of course, to learn a language is just to grow up with it. Learn it as a child. It's so much easier for children to learn, for one thing. And it's easiest, no matter what age you are, to learn a language if you're surrounded by it, if it's in your home and the people that you talk to every day are speaking the language. Of course, that will help you. But if you think about it, children are surrounded by the language, but they tune out a lot of what they hear because children they can only understand what they're ready to understand. They hear a lot of very complicated language and a lot of simpler language in their normal life. And of course, adults make an attempt to speak on a more simple level to children, but adults don't always know what's complicated and what's not because they speak the language fluently. It's all easy to them. But what happens is that the children hear all these different levels of language from a lot of different people, and they sort of pay attention to the parts that are simple enough for them to understand. Now, in the classroom, and we're talking about classroom teaching here, because that's the way most people will be studying an Indian language these days, you don't have that luxury of having your relatives and friends and neighbors and everyone all around you. We have to kind of try to simulate that situation of people talking to you and you being expected to talk back, and things happening while people talk, so you can kind of match up those sounds of language with the things that someone's commenting on or asking you to do or something like that. So as a teacher, I'd suggest that you think this way. You need to manage your choice of language carefully. Ideally, everything that you say should be something that the learner can handle. They either get it or at least almost get it. And on the second or third time you say it, they'll be understanding you. How do you achieve this? By starting at zero, ground zero, in other words, no previous experience required at that level for beginners. And keep your language very simple, short, plain, but yet real and authentic sentences. And proceed by baby steps so that each new thing builds on the last thing that the student has already learned. Your job is to deliver success. So everything you do should be geared to help the students gain in their abilities and their confidence. So that's simplification. Repetition. I think we all know, anyone that's ever studied a language knows that having a word repeated several times helps you a lot to just hear it and realize what the sounds are, and also just get used to hearing it and to differentiate it from other words. And repeating it yourself helps you kind of form the sounds in your mouth of this new language. So repetition is always good. And in a way, again, it's trying to replicate what normally would be happening naturally as children grow up with a language. They hear the same thing over and over. They hear it from mom, from dad, from the neighbors, from the teacher. And so they get a lot of repetition. They're around the language night and day. And again, of course, we can't quite achieve that in the classroom, but we can simulate it as well as possible by having language immersion so that they are around the language constantly, so long as they're in your classroom. So we need to manage the simplicity of the language that the teacher is using and also the repetition factor very carefully. I would suggest to any teachers or people planning to be teachers that whenever you introduce a word for the first time, be careful to say it at least several times and say it slowly. And remember also, when I say repetition, that's kind of a two-way street. Not only that the teacher should repeat things several times, but the teacher needs to insist that the students also repeat things, because you don't want your students just sitting there passively like a bump on a log. The sooner you get them opening their mouth and having the courage to say words in the language, the easier it'll be on them, and the more they'll learn. So that's simplification and repetition, and the third part of this structuring of the classroom experience is experience itself. In other words, creating a little experience that the students and the teachers are experiencing together, so that then when you say something, they already know what you're talking about and you don't have to translate. Just as in normal life, we comment on things and we don't explain what we mean or translate. We just comment and everybody sees what happens, hears what's said, and even the little child that's just learning language starts to make those connections between what's going on in the world and what's being said. So you need to simulate this as best you can in the classroom by creating little events, showing pictures, using the children themselves, pointing to children and commenting about them, talk about the weather, anything that you're all experiencing together so that you all know basically what the person's going to say. Then when they say it, that connection is made between the language and the reality. 2 points specifically about the experience. It's very important to be consistent. For instance, in the demonstration tonight, we're going to be talking a language where there are several different ways that you could greet someone, but we're going to just stick to one way. And that's what I would suggest in any language that you're teaching. Pick one simple, easy to understand, easy to repeat way of saying something, and then always say it that way until the students have that down pat. Then you can start introducing the other alternative variations later on. But be as consistent as you can, otherwise there's just going to be too many meanings and too many sounds to match up, and no one has that good of a memory when they're just beginning to study a language. And the second specific thing about this experience that you're going to simulate, stay in the here and now. Don't talk, in the beginning at least, don't talk about what you did yesterday. Don't talk about somebody who's not here unless you have a picture to hold up of them. Don't talk about something that's not happening. So you probably will stay in present tense, things that you can point to or that you can demonstrate where actions are concerned. And of course, this doesn't mean you can only talk about the students in the classroom and the pencils and the paper, because you can bring in maps, pictures, you can do drawings, you can mime and act things out. So as long as you have them, as long as you're able to give them some way of experiencing what you're talking about, this will help them to guess the meaning. Always think, how can I use the students' own experience of things to make the meaning of my language obvious to them? So obvious that they don't need a translation. So, enough talk about this, enough English talk anyway. Let's try this out a little bit. Now, this is a show about Indian languages, so I apologize for not being good enough in any Indian language to do this demonstration, say in Cherokee or Comanche or Arapaho. I'm just not fluent enough to not embarrass myself, I'm afraid. And I don't want to mangle any native languages. So for purposes of this illustration, I'm going to use Spanish, which I'm also not fluent at, but I feel more comfortable in it. So any Spanish speakers, please bear with me if you hear a little accent or a little awkwardness. I think basically my, my Spanish will be okay. Hope so. Now I'm hoping that most of you don't know Spanish or maybe only know just a few words, because the best way for a potential language teacher to really understand and appreciate what their students are going to be going through is to put yourself in their place. In other words, to experience yourself what it's like to try to pick up a language that you don't know yet. So I hope for any of you potential teachers out there, you can experience it this way a little bit. And you potential students, maybe, even if you do know some Spanish, maybe kind of observe what I'm doing and try to realize what's helpful and what's not helpful to the language learning experience. Okay, so let's begin. Hola, 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 hola. Hiroko. Hiroko. Hola, Hiroko. Dígame, hola.
Hola, Alice.
Sí, muy bien, gracias. Hola, hola a todos. Muy bien. Me llamo Alice. Me llamo Alice. Me llamo Alice. Vente, Hiroko. Me llamo Alice. ¿Cómo se llama?
Me llamo Hiroko.
Muy bien, gracias. Me llamo Alice. ¿Cómo se llama usted? Muy bien. Estamos en Norman, Oklahoma. Estamos en Norman, Oklahoma. Norman, Oklahoma. Esto es Oklahoma, ¿sí? Oklahoma. ¿Qué es esto? ¿Qué es esto? ¿Qué es esto? Es Texas. Texas es Texas. ¿Qué es eso? Eso es Arkansas. Pero esto es Oklahoma. Aquí, Oklahoma. Muy bien. Esto, ¿es Texas? ¿Sí o no? ¿Es Texas? No. No es Texas, es Oklahoma. ¿Y esto? ¿Es Kansas? No, no es Kansas, es Texas. ¿Esto es Texas? Sí, es Texas. ¿Y eso? ¿Qué es eso? ¿Es Oklahoma? ¿Oklahoma? No, es Kansas. Muy bien. Estamos en Norman, Oklahoma. Esto es la ciudad de Norman. Ciudad Norman. Una ciudad, Tulsa. Esta ciudad es Tulsa. Esta ciudad es Norman. Esta ciudad es Lawton. ¿Estamos en Lawton? No, estamos en Norman. No estamos en Lawton, estamos en Norman. ¿Estamos en Tulsa? No, no estamos en Tulsa. Estamos en Norman, Oklahoma. Muy bien. Estamos en Norman, no estamos en Dallas, Texas. No estamos en Kansas. Estamos en Norman, Oklahoma. ¿Dónde estamos? Estamos en Norman. Muy bien. Otra cosa. Esto es mi gato. Gato. Es blanco. Es un gato blanco. Blanco. El color es blanco. Aquí tenemos blanco. Un gato blanco. Esto es blanco. Esto es azul. Esto es verde. Esto es rojo. Y esto es negro. Esto es mi gato. El gato es blanco. El gato se llama Charlie. Es mi gato Charlie. Charlie es blanco. Muy bien. Y esto es mi gato aquí. Este gato, sí, este gato se llama Luis. Es mi gato. Es gato, es gata. Charlie es gato, Luis es gata. Mira. Charlie, gato, masculino. Luis, gata. Ups. Mejor. Gata, femenina. Es gata, es femenina. Charlie es gato, es masculino. Muy bien. También, esto aquí es un muchacho. Muchacho. Masculino. Gato, masculino. Gato, muchacho. Gata es femenino. Gata y muchacha. Femenino. Muchacha, gata, femenino. Muchacho, gato, masculino. Muy bien. Este es mi gato Charlie y es un gato blanco. Esto es Luis. Es una gata grisa. Blanco, el color blanco, el color gris. ¿Qué más? Esta es una rana. Este color es verde. Una rana verde. Verde. Verde como aquí, verde. También verde. No azul, no rojo, sino verde. Una rana verde. Y esto es un tigre. El tigre es rayado. Rayado. Rayado es, tiene rayas. Raya, 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 raya. Muchas rayas. El tigre es rayado. Miren. Esto es color puro. Azul, verde, rojo, negro. Estos son rayados. Negro rayado, rojo rayado, verde rayado y azul rayado. Tiene rayas, ¿verdad? Bueno, este es un gato. ¿Qué es? Díganme, es un gato blanco. Esto es un gato, una gata. Esto es un tigre, es rayado. Y esto es una rana, es verde. Muy bien, muy bien. Bueno, una cosa más. Esto, un gato, ¿verdad? Gato, muchacho, gata, muchacha. Masculino, femenino. Es un muchacho, una muchacha. Una muchacha, un muchacho. Y aquí es un muchacho. ¿Cómo se llama? Se llama Elian González. Es el muchacho Elian González. Esto es mi gato, se llama Charlie. Esto es un muchacho, se llama Elian. Se llama Elian. Se llama Luis, se llama Charlie. Muy bien. Let me take a break for just a moment from this and yak at you some more about what we just did. Notice that this goes pretty slowly. In fact, I'm really hurrying it up. In the real classroom, it would probably go more slowly. It goes slowly, but it goes. With all the repetition, there is no mistaking this for everyday speech. In everyday speech, we'd say, hey, this is my cat Charlie, and we'd move on to the next topic. We're going to talk about Charlie and the word cat and how to say what someone's name is again and again and again. That's one of the things that makes a class different from learning a language as you grow up. It's more structured. We're more careful about managing the input we give the students to make sure that they get enough repetition, that what you say to them is simple enough. Make sure that they're with you every step of the way because you don't want to waste a moment of time in the classroom. You want it to be as effective as possible. That's kind of how it goes. Let's review a little bit of how the method figured in everything that I did. Remember, we're trying to bring some experience with repetition and simplification. First thing I did was I greeted everyone and said, hola. That's one of several ways that you can greet someone in Spanish, but I picked that one because it's very simple. It works both ways. I say hola to you, you say hola back. So that's one of the simplest things to learn, and it's also a very common everyday expression. You want your students to know it. So the experience was, I waved my hand. This was just the beginning of relating to someone. It's kind of obvious the first thing you're doing is to greet someone, so they know that hola is a greeting. They don't know if it means anything or how it differs from other greetings. All they know is that you can go hola, and the other person goes hola back. So that worked experientially. Then I started pointing to things. I wanted to say what my name was. As soon as I say Alice, I think you might know I'm on the track of saying what my name is, but you don't necessarily know the whole deal. So to reinforce that experience, I had a name tag, which tells everybody my name is Alice. I didn't say it in English, though. It's okay to use proper names like Alice or Oklahoma. That doesn't count as using English. So I just pointed to the name tag, kind of circled around it to indicate this is what I'm getting at. When you point to your name tag, you're telling someone what your name is. So then I said, Me llamo Alice. And then we started pointing to pictures of cats and tigers and places on the map. And a lot of repetition, a lot of going back and forth, contrasting, say, Lawton and Tulsa and Norman, going back. And as we did this, there was so much of that that's known to you. You're familiar with the map. You're familiar with those 3 cities. You know that this program is broadcast in Norman, Oklahoma, so I'm probably saying something like we're in Norman, Oklahoma. But in the process of all this repetition, I was able to slip in some grammar on you. So you could say, Estamos en Norman, Oklahoma. Now, you probably don't know if that means I'm in or we're in Norman, Oklahoma. It means we. We'd sort that out later. But you found out how to say, Estamos en Norman, Oklahoma, as opposed to No estamos en Tulsa. So you're beginning to learn a little bit of a grammatical rule of Spanish, which is that unlike English, sometimes to make a sentence negative, you just put no at the beginning of it, and the rest of the sentence will look the same. And I carefully chose my examples so that rule would be followed in all the examples I gave you. So you can say, Estamos en Norman, no estamos en Tulsa. And then I asked you, is this Oklahoma? No, this is Texas. Is this Kansas? No, this is Oklahoma, and so forth. So you're kind of learning how to do yes and no questions and how to say that something is true and that it's not true. Still keeping things very, very simple. We moved along a little bit. I went back and forth between talking about the cats and other things. I gave you a little lesson on gender in Spanish. There are a lot of words in Spanish that end in an O that are masculine words, and that others that end in an A and an A sound, which are feminine words. And the easiest example of this, some of this is arbitrary. How do you know that a book is masculine and a table is feminine? So I didn't start with that kind of example. I started with something simple, a live creature that's going to be male or female. And I mentioned these 2 cats because they have a very male-sounding name and a very female-sounding name, respectively. So I said, this is my cat. I go back to review the my name is kind of structure, the verb for having a name. So I said his name is Charlie. I talked about the other cat. Her name is Louise. So we were already reviewing a previous part of the lesson about telling someone's name. And then I talked about the colors of the different cats. And I showed you how gato ends in an O sound, and it's a masculine thing, just like muchacho, which is a boy, gato, which is a male cat. Muchacha is a girl, and gata is a female cat. So we started getting the beginnings of little grammar lessons in a lot of things that are very, very important in the structure of Spanish. But we didn't open up our book and look at charts and talk a lot of technical jargon. Just sort of showing a few easy examples at a time, and the idea is that you'll gradually build on that as you go through your class. I think we're not going to probably have time to go. I was going to do a little bit with verbs. I do want to just point out that the method we've used so far, mostly you'd say, well, it's not too different than just going around the room and pointing at things and repeating a word. And yet, notice that it really was different, because I very rarely said just a single word. I usually said at least a phrase like, mi gato, my cat. And because I had a photograph, I think you might sort of catch on that this is my cat. I know their names, I speak of them in a way that sounds familiar. I hope you caught on to that. Mostly I used full sentences, though. Me llamo Alice. Esto es Norman. Estamos en Norman. Estamos en Oklahoma. Esto es Oklahoma. And I wasn't just saying Oklahoma, dog, cat, tiger. I said, this is Oklahoma. We are in Norman, and things like that. And it's a good practice to get your students used to hearing things in full sentences, because people usually speak in, if not grammatically full sentences, at least in phrases and things that sort of stand alone and have some structure unto themselves, not in single words. We don't speak like a telegram. Okay, so what have we learned so far? We've learned a couple of social niceties, how to say yes, no, hello, my name is, what is your name? We've learned how to talk a little bit about cities and states. We've learned the words for cat and a couple of other animals, and we've learned a few color terms, and we've learned the word rayado, that means striped. And I threw in the word raya, which means a stripe or a line. I think probably people would be starting to catch on to that connection too. So this is really probably more than one lesson. Again, I'm kind of trying to conflate several things just to illustrate a little bit of technique here. And I hope that if you didn't know a word of Spanish at the beginning, that by now, maybe you couldn't say any of these things back to me yet. But imagine if we really were in a class, and unlike on the television example, if I really was looking you in the eye and I could see when you were with me and when you weren't, so I could tailor it a little bit more to each student. I think by now we could have had everyone repeating everything I said, and everyone would at least be able to recognize words like male cat, female cat, boy, girl, what is your name, my name is, and hello back, and yes and no, and muy bien. I said muy bien many times, and often I applauded, so I hope you understood, and I smiled and looked really positive like I was congratulating you all. Somehow that's saying you done good, and that's exactly what it means. It means very good or very well. So you've learned all of this in about 20 minutes, and I hope that you can take something away from this demonstration of technique in order to apply to your own classes. If you're not a teacher, discuss what you've seen or show a tape of this to someone that you would like to be your teacher and see if you can kind of get them on this same track. You'd be amazed how far you can get without any English at all. See you next time on Wordpath.
Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene malaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene malaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene malaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita.